Steelers.
Pittsburgh do this all the time. I've been playing them for 13 years. When you avoid the middle, they go into the middle. It's never changed.
And welcome back to the 11th episode or edition of the Steel City Sermon. I am your host, Mr. Roy Countryman. Thank you for having me in your computer screen, cell phone, whatever it is. We had a little bit of rough time getting some technical difficulties worked out, but hey, it's life. So we roll with the punches here. I'm going to welcome you in. Let's get right into it. You know how I like to start this show with the prelude, being it is our church service here, or our Steel City Sermon for the week. So let's dive right into it. First of all, the thoughts on the Monday night victory against the New York Giants. Man, it was a little rough at first in the first half, but we started seeing them put it together at the end of the second quarter. Going into the second half, we really started to see what this whole team can really be doing when it hits on all cylinders. But Big Ben, you looked a little rusty early on. You maybe overthrew a few passes here and there, but it was so impressive to see that 2-minute drive at the end of the first half there. It was vintage Ben. Small amount of clock back. He just really dissected the field. His arm strength is back there, folks. And it was so refreshing to see with our defense performing the way it is. We didn't have struggles on offense. And he maybe didn't hit so many home run plays as maybe in previous years, but he did enough to not Mason Rudolph or Duck Hodge the game. He protected the ball well, didn't have any turnovers. He made the pertinent passes whenever they were called for. So Big Ben, big tip of the hat to you. In your first performance back, I know you were saying that you felt like you were beat up by a Mack truck after this first game because you did take some hits, but that's all in good time, and we're going to see you continually get better, more and more reps after being a year out of performance here. So that's definitely the first encouraging sign with that victory from the Giants. The next one is, yet again, we've seen James Conner go out with an injury, although it doesn't seem like it's anything of major note. But he continually gets hurt, and he's showing that he's probably not going to be able to hold up to the durability factor of a workhorse. But man, the refreshing running attitude and being able to see the quickness of Benny Snell's evolution. Last year, whenever he would cut it outside, he just simply did not have the quickness to make a defender miss and get upfield at the speed that he has now. He went right about it with the running back diet the Steelers like to do with bigger backs from college, a la James Conner, a la Le'Veon Bell. We're right back to it with Benny Snell. And for me, I'm sorry, James Conner, you're my high-quality number 2 back going forward the rest of the season. Benny Snell has usurped you. I'm featuring him in this offense. That hard-nosed running style with now an improved quickness and a little bit more speed, that's dangerous. And I'd rather have a high-quality number 2 back that may have injury problems like a Conner than as my featured back. So Benny Snell, for me, that was a big-time performance when we needed it. They were wanting to establish the running game. It was almost, to a fault in the first half that they were featuring James Conner. And Benny Snell, you really impressed me as I've been kind of talking you up all offseason and through training camp. It's been really impressive. So, and as I always say, he's got the number 1 mouthpiece game in all the NFL with his spinner rim. So we gotta throw that in there. Chase Claypool, he only got a few targets, but man, that toe tap along the sideline, you see big things are in store for him. Where it's going to be kind of interesting to see the allotment of targets and how they're going to be dispersed. We see the multiplicity of this offense with a lot of motion now being put into it with Matt Canada. Randy Fichtner has a lot of weapons and a lot of mouths to feed. Eric Ebron had a couple impressive catches, although he did drop one on an off-platform throw by Big Ben. You have Washington that looked like a big-time stud breaking through some tackles for a touchdown. Juju Smith-Schuster looked healthy and dynamic with Ben throwing him the ball. You had Deontay Johnson, who had a rough first half, but then really started going, being the go-to target for Ben outside of Juju, and you know he's going to be featured in here. So, and then you have Claypool. So it's going to be interesting to see how they feed all these mouths as they go forward. But for me, as a Steeler fan, I am greatly encouraged because you see the evolution of this offense. We can beat you in multiple ways. We can beat you with a downhill running game. We can beat you with checking the ball out of the backfield. We can beat you with run after the catch. Like in this game, he let a lot of his receivers win after the catch. James Washington for his touchdown, and Deontay Johnson a lot of in-breaking routes. It was almost Patriot-esque the way they attacked that defense of the Giants. So that was very impressive. Chase Claypool's first catch and a few catches there, and the way he was playing, especially his blocking ability, it's always a welcome treat as a Steeler receiver to see a receiver block. So Chase Claypool, big tip of the cap to you. Then on defense, I know we're getting established and used to see this. And we're going to be just really be featuring the way this defense is playing. We're not going to need a lot on offense. We've seen what we were able to do with number 2 and number 3 type quarterback. Now we have a Hall of Famer at the wheel. And so we just need to not kill ourselves with turnovers. But this defense is legit, folks. I'm sorry, Javon Hargrave, I love you. But we didn't see much of a letdown after we let you go. Because at nose tackle, we had Tyson Alu, and this man was wreaking havoc along with his other counterparts Intuit and Hayward. Even Isaiah Buggs had a couple nice plays where he was two-gapping as a nose tackle and a D-line. But Tyson Alu, from the nose or a shade nose, he was really penetrating. He was blowing things up in the backfield. One of probably the most impressive plays since he's come, series of plays since he's come to Pittsburgh. And it's just been really impressive the way their penetrating front is. They were killing Saquon Barkley in the backfield. I forget what the true stats are. I think it was only like 12 yards he rushed for, because at one point it was like negative 12, negative 15 yards. He was getting crushed in the backfield at every opportunity. So Tyson Alu, big time props to you, buddy, and that whole Steelers defense for shutting down the run. Bud Dupree was also a part of that, and I want to highlight him here. A lot of times it might have been being non-blocked by the New York Giants offensive tackles. They kind of forgot about him at a few times, but you can see the explosive ability and the better pursuit angles that it was last year that really made him take that next step in the game with his pass rush and also run defense. It's still there. He's getting better and better with his pass rush moves, and he's a really intriguing guy to see what the upside is this season with TJ Watt on the other side. I'm glad they franchise tagged him. I don't know if he's going to be here long term. It will be disgusting to see him probably in another uniform if we can't re-sign him after the season. But enjoy it while you have him, Pittsburgh. And this team is really built for a Super Bowl run, and that guy is just ascending in his talent. We all knew he was a great athlete, but man, he's getting more and more technically sound. He's wreaking havoc as a run defender and now learning a little more as a pass rusher with Chuck Smith. Outstanding work, Bud Dupree. That was an awesome effort. And you didn't get outshined by TJ Watt this time, even though he had a ridiculous jump-up interception for getting into a throwing lane. So TJ Watt's a beast. Bud Dupree, we have bookends. One thing I got to pick on you, Steelers Nation here, is everybody was beating up Minka a little bit for that giving up touchdown over the top. If you go back and watch the whole play, that's actually a concept to where he is supposed to break down and Joe Hayden's supposed to roll over the top and play that deep third or a portion close to it. So I wouldn't give him full responsibility for that touchdown that was given up over the top to Darius Slayton. Not saying he couldn't play it a little bit more technically sound and maybe waited another half step, but Joe Hayden was kind of the one at fault there, that he should have rolled back over the top to pick up the deep third coverage in that zone look. So Minka, you might have had a rough first game a little bit, but I know there's better days ahead for you. Devin Bush is another guy. This guy, not only was he wreaking havoc sideline to sideline, sure tackling, and not only that, he was looking to take somebody's helmet off. There was quite a big hit to Saquon Barkley. His communication skills have been next level. Just in that first performance, you could see he's taking that gradual growth into the defense. He's now not only just, thinking about playing, he's just reacting, and he's being able to communicate that pre-snap. So that's very encouraging. Only in the early part of the second year in his NFL career, he got a lot of experience in year one, and really it's only, the ceiling is through the roof for this kid with his athleticism, and now the finer points and things are starting to fall in place early on the second year. So as long as he stays healthy, he's going to put up massive numbers this year. Another one here is Deontay Johnson. I already kind of talked about him, but as a punt returner, he scared me to death the first half of the game. He did have the fumble. It was a very bad misread on a ball in the air, bounced off his pads, wound up leading to a red zone opportunity for the Giants. Then on the next one, he wound up having to go into the ground to complete the catch on a punt return. He was a Pro Bowl, I believe Pro Bowl or All-Pro selection, I can't remember, last year as the punt returner for the AFC, but I would rather we gradually just transition him away from that. I wanted him to just focus solely on receiving duties, because I think he could be one of the best in the NFL as a receiver, especially this year, maybe next year as he transitions to more skill set inside that offense as a go-to man, a la Antonio Brown. But why not Ray McCloud? That's really the reason why he made this team, was special teams. The one return he did really flash. He about broke it for a touchdown on a kick return. I believe it was at the beginning, towards the beginning of the second half there. He was able to read the blocks well. He has great field vision, and he has experience punt returning. So let's get him back there. Let's see if he can flash a little bit, save a little bit of wear and tear on Deontay Johnson as he's dealing still with a foot injury. It's nothing serious, but why take the wear and tear, especially when you have an explosive talent like that that's a known special teams presence. So Deontay Johnson, focus on offense. And if you do go back for punt return, let's just get a little sound. Don't try to high point the ball on a punt. Let's get underneath of it and just be confident in yourself. I know having Big Ben go back to you after a bad drop earlier in the game really showed a lot of gusto to you, and I'm glad that you were able to get your confidence back in the second half. Let's just keep building off of that. The other thing was the depth at outside linebacker was quite impressive. I'm encouraged to see the amount of snaps that they give the third and fourth rushers in this game to keep the Duprees and Watts healthy. Also along the defensive line, we've seen a lot of Isaiah Buggs. And it was just really impressive to see Alex Highsmith. His first step quickness was eye-popping. And the continual presence and evolution in this defense with him as he works with an NFL coaching staff coming from a small school in Charlotte, it's going to be evident, and I think he's the guy they're looking to take the place of Bud Dupree next year. That's why we took him in the third round, but he had a very impressive first showing there as a rotational pass rusher. And Ola Adeniyi, he really made Tuzar Skipper expendable. He was one of my personal favorites, and I know I'll take some heat for that, but Adeniyi showed up in better shape than Tuzar this year. He really showed his evolution, and it's never been a talent thing with Adeniyi. It's always been the injuries, and if he's been able to stay healthy, which has really taken a lot of his opportunities away. But he's always one of the youngest guys on the roster. He was declared in the draft at, I believe, at like 20 years old. We got him as an undrafted free agent. And this dude can rush the passer. You seen him, he was crawling on his hands and knees trying to get after the quarterback. So close to getting his first sack, but I think he was either first or second on the team in pressures this past game. Very impressive showing for Ola Adeniyi. So we're in good hands there with some depth. It's going to be nice and refreshing not to see Dupree and Watt have to take 90, 95%, 80, high 80% of the snaps this year on total defense, that we're going to be able to pass those allotment all around and see that quality depth show. And that's going to make us a better team down the stretch, hopefully for a Super Bowl run, because everybody will be fresh, wreaking havoc. So other thing was, and this might get overlooked a lot, was our punting duties. Dustin Colquitt, welcome to Pittsburgh. You're doing your father proud here in the lineage he's left with Pittsburgh. He had a high average. He was able to get one down inside the 20. The consistency was there. Good job, Dustin Colquitt. And finally, come on, Wizard of Oz. Don't give us a heart attack with missing a point after a touchdown. We need you to be solid this year. We don't need no shaky kicking like a lot around the NFL. Let's just get that tightened up. Maybe it was early season jitters. You just want to get through it. But come on, Wizard of Oz. Don't give us a heart attack like that. So that was my initial thoughts on the victory that we had against the Giants. Next thing we're going to dive into here on our prelude is the injury bug. I did mention James Conner. He went down with a nicked ankle. He wound up getting, taken out of the rest of the game. Maybe long-term story. Maybe this is the final straw that maybe he goes to number 2 back in the tiered system here. Now we have Benny Snell as our workhorse. I'm going to be pounding that drum all year. I love you, James Conner. Love your story, what you're all about. But I just simply don't think you can stay healthy. I love you, man, but be a high-quality number 2 in this offense. Let's win a Super Bowl ring together. He went down with an injury. We had David DeCastro, who's still down with a knee injury. It's not looking good for this week, coming into week 2 against the Broncos. Stefan Wisniewski went down with a pec injury. It's probably going to be a multiple-week injury. He was placed on IR. And I was actually making comments during the game that he wasn't have that impressive of a showing anyway. I believe he's still a better center than a guard. And Kevin Dotson, who is somebody I loved since coming out of the draft class, I was calling for Dotson to get the plays after halftime. Let him come in at right guard. And disappointed at the end of the game there in some pass protection reps, as well as some nice short trap game and blowing up some people. He's a powerful guy. He'll be impressive to see. It's looking like he'll probably get his first start this week. So there's another injury we're dealing with. The final one I'm going to talk about here, and this one's devastating, second to last one. The devastating one was Zach Banner. This dude's, if you have yet to know what his whole true story is, I encourage you to follow him on Twitter. This dude is one of the most, gregarious personalities out there. He's not afraid to speak his mind. He actually got off of social media for a while just to focus on himself. I have a personal story, like last year at the training camp, I went to talk to him, just in an interview, just because of his transformation of his body. He didn't blow me off, but he literally said, "You're not talking to me this year." He goes, "If you want to talk to me next year, we'll talk." He goes, "But there's 5 veterans over there. I have to work to have somebody come and ask for an interview." So that says, for me, miles and miles of respect. This guy worked for everything he got. He beat out Chuksa Okorafor in training camp this year for that position, and then to go down with a tore ACL, it was devastating. I don't think he's going to have to worry about not having a contract next year, because I think the Pittsburgh front office was very impressed, especially in his first showing. He had a pretty good game, even in pass protection and run blocking especially. He was blowing some people up off the end. So, big tip of the cap and some prayer requests to you, buddy. We love you, Zach Banner. Get healthy. We'll see you in 2021, and I'm hoping you're being featured as the starting right tackle. But that was kind of devastating to see him go down with a torn ACL. And Wisniewski on both of those guys in subsequent plays was awful. It does affect our depth along the offensive line, but I know some commentators are saying, "Oh, it's the end of the world for the Steelers." I'm not so sure. We did have offensive line was one place where we did have some quality depth right behind the starters. You had Chuksa Okorafor, who I think they were grooming, and one of the main reasons why they gave Banner a shot at the right tackle. They wanted him to play swing tackle, and I really think he's the long-term replacement for Villanueva at left tackle. Although my boy, I love Villanueva, I'm not so sure he's going to be here long-term. I think Okorafor is going to be maybe a little bit of an improvement in pass blocking as we go down the stretch and throughout the rest of the season, but he's probably not going to be as good a run blocker as Zach Banner. So a little bit of the attitude goes away, and you might get a little bit better pass protection, though, for Big Ben. Kevin Dotson, though, it's going to be an interesting right side of the line now until we get the Castro back with Dotson and Chooks out there at right tackle. The final guy I want to kind of highlight here, and it sounds like it's nothing major to be worried about, but Stephon Tuitt was listed on the injury report this week with a Achilles injury, and he's just always seemed to have a nagging injury that maybe he's been behind the scenes, with the elbow, whether it's the bicep and pec. He just always seems like he has a nick here and there, and I really hope that this isn't something that's not going to nag on all year, because I want to see him full wreak havoc as he did last year before he went down with his pec injury. So prayers to you, buddy. Get healthy. I don't want to see you have to worry about health as the main factor here. Final thing on our prelude section here, and that is the Big Ben documentary, Bigger Than Ben by Rep 1 Football. It was the 4th installment and 4th episode this past week came out. Great story. It showed him progressing throughout training camp. It showed him progressing and throwing with his teammates. It showed, basically all the rest of the the things coming down the stretch and what's culminated with the final, piece of the whole documentary, him running out of the tunnel and playing in the Monday Night Football game against the Giants. It was kind of a cool way to see the whole documentary wrap up, and especially with his wife Ashley and their kids at the end, watching the game and cheering him on with victory there against the Giants was really cool, because you can see it really took a lot of toll, not only on him, but his wife, his kids, everybody, his friends around him. And I just really want to thank the Steelers organization, Rep 1 Sports, Big Ben himself. It's been a really cool, look behind the curtain to see what's really, how he built himself back. It's just been a really cool, kind of invention, and be able to see the entire story. Because you see a lot of these players, you don't realize how far they have come and what the effects are on everything, but a mental and also emotional standpoint. And it's just been really great. I think maybe we should see more documentaries like this. It helps tell their stories a little better. It gets you to know the entirety, not only of the player, but the teammates as well, and the way they build each other up. So that was really cool. The link is also in the description of this if you want to go watch the entire documentary. I do encourage you, if you're a Steeler fan or just an NFL fan, because this is a groundbreaking type effort with his recovery. There's been really no documented cases of guys that have tore these tendons off in his elbow to come back and play. So that's an interesting thing. You see Neil Atrashi, who did his surgery. Then you have Jim Bradley, the Steelers doctor, that's been going throughout the process. And also on this edition, you see the different technology they use to see the spin rates and the ball velocity, and where they're comparing to see how his arm strength is back where it's at, or maybe even a little better. So that's encouraging for Steeler fans, so go check it out there. So now we're going to transition to the sermon part of this, the sermon session. And this is all about what's been announced this week. This week, there was 130 nominees for the 2021 class of the Hall of Fame out in Canton, Ohio. They're going to be voted upon here and tasked with cutting down people to get such. There's no minimum amount of players that make it each year. We do have the third most Hall of Famers all time in Canton, and we're only behind the Packers and Bears, and it's going to be interesting going forward. So that made me think about, who are the people that are going to be getting the cases made for them for the next of the Steelers causes, Steelers players, and the ones that have played the majority of their snaps for our gracious team here. And I'm going to go through some of the ones that are already nominated, and then we're going to take a look at some of the ones that are going to be making a case for as soon as they're out of the NFL that are maybe going to have a shot here. So the ones that are already up for nominations, the first one, I kind of spoke on it last week, was Bill Nunn. He was actually selected as a contributor finalist, and this guy is hands down. And when you're in a contributor finalist, you get a yes or no vote. You don't have to get such a percentage. It's only a yes or no. There's no doubt this guy should be a shoe-in. He is one of the architects of the 70s Steelers, helping to find undervalued HBCU African-American players at them colleges, really had the value in them players instilled in the NFL, was one of the reasons why we had such greats like John Stallworth, Mean Joe Green, and Mel Blount. You got to really go back there. And my boy Rob said Lima Swede needs to be a Hall of Famer. Come on, Rob, you can't do that to me whenever I'm talking about that, bro. But it's just been absolutely crazy with the way a lot of these guys have been already nominated. It's gone back to my full heart and some of the players that I remember cheering my mind off for, me and my dad screaming at the TV, and now it's cool to see these guys getting opportunities to get into the Hall of Fame. So the first one was Bill Nunn. If you haven't yet found him out, last week I put a book called The Color of Sundays, was wrote by a great author, the whole dynamic of Bill Nunn and his impact on the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 70s. So he'll get in with it, and he's one of the renowned scouts of the time. Next is Hines Ward. He played his entire 14-year career with us in black and gold. He was Super Bowl MVP of Super Bowl Extra Large, was one of only 8 players to have 1,000 career receptions. When he retired, he won a second NFL championship with the Steelers in Extra Large version 3. Ward is the Steelers' all-time leader in receptions with 1,000. He's their leader in receiving yards and touchdown catches. and he's a member of the Steelers' all-time team. So that guy, he might have a harder case with some of the other receivers coming up, because we all know Hall of Fame voters don't like to put multiples of position, multiples. Plus, with us having the third most Hall of Famers all time, he's probably going to have to wait. I believe this is his second or third year already on here. But ultimately, I think Hines Ward should be a Hall of Famer before his allotment of time is there to be voted in, because this guy not only was a pass catcher, he's one of the most unique stories in the football game. He's one of the great ambassadors of the game. He came from Georgia, where they played him at receiver and quarterback. The man has no ACLs in his knee, and they wrote a role about him. So, in my opinion, if they write a role about you to either take you out of the game or not do something like that, go back and watch a highlight of him blocking Keith Rivers, and his jaw will not thank you for that. But Hines Ward, definitely, he breathes Pittsburgh Steeler everything. So Hines Ward is one. The next one is Heath Miller. Very undervalued player for the last decade plus. He was always one of Big Ben's favorite targets. He was a first-round pick. We stole, and the only reason why he was dropped down, I believe, 30th overall was because of a sports hernia injury. And thank you for all the other teams to pass him up, because he played his entire career with the Steelers. One of the most humble guys around, one of the team leaders behind the scenes. He was a two-time Super Bowl champ. He only made the Pro Bowl 2 times, and that has a lot to do with the other talented tight end. He has 592 career receptions, a little over 6,500 yards, and 45 touchdowns. Key target in there. I'm not so sure he's going to actually make the Hall of Fame, but he was an all-time great in Pittsburgh fact. But when you put him up and stack him against the classes of Gronkowski, it's going to be coming in. Jimmy Graham possibly towards down the end. You look at his stats compared to Tony Gonzalez, they're not as great, but great Steeler. Not so sure he's going to be a Hall of Famer. One other guy I want to feature here, and this guy should be one of the very next ones to get his chance to be enshrined in Canton, is Alan Faneca. He was a key component of the Steelers during the 2000s, including Super Bowl victory extra large. He was a 9-time Pro Bowl selection, named to the first team All-Pro 6 times. He was a mauler, and it's just really interesting. He played left tackle for us due to injuries at some point, and this guy he has nifty footwork. He was a good pass protector, absolute talent there. I'm not so sure he's not going to be in along with Bill Nunn next year in 2021. Other players that are already on nomination here, you have guys like Casey Hampton, who was a rock. That's a man there at nose tackle. Joey Porter, who put up outstanding production with the Steelers and then also with the Dolphins later on. And then Gary Anderson, the kicker back in the 90s, who's one of the all-time greats. Not so sure any of them guys make it. Probably Porter out of the rest of the three there had the best shot, but not so sure. Just wanted to mention them. So that leads us to the next wave of players who we're going to be seeing. And that is going to be interesting to see here as we go forward. And that's Big Ben is the first one that comes to mind. Big Ben was a first-round pick in that vaunted 2014 class. He's a 2-time Super Bowl champ, 6-time Pro Bowler, 2-time NFL passing yards leader, Offensive Rookie of the Year in 2004. He was on the rookie team in 2004. This guy just wins ball games. One of the all-time greats. He's going to finish up there with passing yards, touchdowns. We see, I believe he's 8th all-time, tied with Eli Manning in passing touchdowns. So Big Ben's got to be in this conversation if we're talking about next Hall of Famers. And not only that, this next guy, who I think went off the deep end, but you can't lie with production. That's Antonio Brown. So these guys go hand in hand. Antonio Brown, when he's a Pittsburgh Steeler, was one of the best all time. Now for him, it's going to be duration of length of career. If he ever comes back and puts up more production, it's going to be interesting to see. But as of right now, you can make a case for him getting in the Hall of Fame. If people are saying Julian Edelman should get in, Antonio Brown should get in before Julian Edelman. This guy's a 7-time Pro Bowler, 4-time first-team All-Pro. He was a second-team All-Pro, 2-time NFL receiving yards leader, 2-time NFL reception leader, NFL receiving touchdown leader in 2018, and he was a part of the All-Decade team for the 2010. Then if you just look at his pure stats right now, in receptions, he's 28th all-time with 841. Receiving yards, he's at 35th all-time. And receiving touchdowns, he's tied for 34th all-time. And that's not even playing basically this season if he comes back from suspension, and last year outside of, 2 or 3 games. So Antonio Brown, outstanding talent, probably one of the best 6th-round picks ever. Him and Tom Brady, absolute stud. He should be enshrined if he gets his head on straight, in my opinion. I think that's what's going to hold back a la T.O. At times, who probably should have been pure production-wise, should be in there. So it's going to be an interesting fact if AB and his situation, what his relationship is with the writers that are voting. The next guy who's making a case, and that's James Harrison. This guy it's a little bit of a sting to my heart because the last time we seen him in an NFL jersey, he was in New England Patriots, blue and white and red, and it was disgusting. So, but he was a 2-time Super Bowl champ, 5-time Pro Bowler, 2-time first-team All-Pro, 2-time second-team All-Pro, and he was the NFL Defensive Player of the Year in 2008. And that usually goes a long way if you can be the DPOY in a year. He has 84.5 sacks, which is, I believe, in the 20-some range, 28th over all-time range. Had one of the best plays all-time in a Super Bowl, returning that interception for a touchdown. And he's just a force from the outside. I know Joey Porter has more pure sacks, but when you talk about a dominating presence as a run defender and total impact on the game, James Harrison is an interesting one to go into the Hall of Fame voting. He's probably going to be overshadowed by a lot of other pure pass rushers, like Von Miller when he eventually retires, Justin Houston, a lot of these other guys, J.J. Watt, when they eventually, so he might get overshadowed, but don't sleep on James Harrison. He is a total package there. Another guy that's been Big Ben's, Robin to his Batman throughout mostly the duration of his career, Marquise Pouncey. I know a lot of people sometimes say he's overrated, but that guy's a leader of men, and that can't be overshadowed. Plus, you look at the lineage of players that are in the Hall of Fame for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That center position is special. We have Dermontti Dawson, Mike Webster. These guys are just synonymous for outstanding play at the center. Marquise Pouncey takes up that mantle quite well. 8-time Pro Bowler, 2-time first-team All-Pro, 3-time second-team All-Pro, All-Rookie team in 2010. He's the Rookie of the Year for the Steelers in 2010, and he was a part of the All-Decade team for the 2010s. All 121 games he's ever played in the NFL, he started. Outstanding mobility, be able to get to the second level. I really like his case to get in. He's going to probably have to wait a la Alan Faneca, who's one of the best, at his position at that time. But he definitely has a case to get in there. Couple more here, just quickly, I'll throw them out. David DeCastro, he lost 1 year due to injury, but that first-round pick was a steal. I can't believe that a lot of guys passed up on him. 5-time Pro Bowler, 2-time first-team All-Pro. He was also a second-team All-Pro. 111 starts. He's been one of the best guards in the game. Probably get overshadowed by a Zach Martin and some of the other guys if they all end their career at the same point, so he might have to wait as well. Another guy, Cam Hayward, he's ascending. He's got to continually put up a lot more, 3 to 4 more years of quality production. But the last 3, he's been one of the most dominant interior defensive linemen with Aaron Donald and J.J. Watt when he's healthy. But he's a 3-time Pro Bowler, 2-time first-team All-Pro. He's at 54 sacks for a defensive lineman. So that's one you can make a case for. Another one is Joe Hayden. I'm not so sure that he would ever go in as a Steeler, although he loves Pittsburgh. A lot of people are synonymous with him with Cleveland. But he's a 3-time Pro Bowler and a second-team All-Pro. He has 27 career interceptions, dynamic cover corner, and that's a guy you could probably make a case for down the way. Now, this is a guy I'm going to really start banging the drum early for. If he stays healthy, I think this is one of the next guy that you're talking with a Big Ben, with probably a Marquise Pouncey. These are the guys that you're talking that are probably going to have a legit chance to get in probably within their first 2 to 3 years if he can stay healthy and maintain his production, and that's T.J. Watt. T.J. Watt is an ascending talent in this league, and he's only getting better. He was drafted in 2017 at pick 30 overall. I still thank you, Green Bay, for not taking him because I was so worried that draft class they were going to take him. 2-time Pro Bowler. First team All-Pro in 2019. Second team All-Pro also in 2019. All-Rookie team in 2017. This guy, just through two years basically, 2 to 3 years, 34.5 sacks, 15 forced fumbles, 4 fumble recoveries, 4 interceptions. This guy is a playmaker. And do not be surprised that him and his brother are both about equal in sacks when they both end their career if TJ Watt don't go past him. If he can stay healthier than his brother, he may have all-time great stats, one of the all-time great families of the NFL. Thank you to that family producing such great pass rushers and a menace on special teams in Derek. And that's a guy I want Steeler Nations to be tracking as they go throughout their career, is TJ Watt. He should definitely be getting a gold jacket if he can produce another 5-6 years of this production. And it would not surprise me. We see it if he stays healthy. Final guy, and I ain't even throwing no statistics out, but he's got to stay healthy. And if he stays in Pittsburgh, that's the only thing I'm going to say. If he stays in Pittsburgh, Juju Smith-Schuster, he's going to need to continually put up those big stats like he did with AB, which he might be able to with the other allotment of talent around him. But he's got to stay in Pittsburgh, because if he leaves Pittsburgh, I do not see it happening. If he stays with Big Ben and goes down that final chapter of Ben's career with him, I think he's going to be peppered with targets and touchdowns and receiving yards, a la Antonio Brown. He's already had a great start to his career outside of last year. He's one of the all-time greats for production coming into his first 2 seasons. So if Juju, if you're listening, re-sign with Pittsburgh, you may just, find yourself have a gold jacket down the future. All right, guys. That's all I have for the Hall of Fame talk. I know that's kind of outlandish at this time, as we're only, week 2 in the season. But I seen the nominations. I had to throw out some cases for some guys to maybe get some light thrown on them and cast, a little bit of info into what kind of players they were. So this transitions to one of our final parts here. Excuse me. And that's our Week 2 preview. Our Week 2 preview, we have the Denver Broncos coming to Pittsburgh in Heinz Field with, unfortunately, no fans. But at 1 o'clock game this Sunday, we have a litany of injuries here, mostly on the Denver side of the ball. But we're going to jump into our injury reports here. Pittsburgh Steelers really only have 2 guys listed on the injury report, but it's really only one. That's David DeCastro is out with a knee injury. Stefan Wisniewski was also listed, but he was also placed on IR, which for this year, remember, fans, it's only 3 weeks that you're out. So we promoted Derwin Gray for his roster spot, who's a versatile guy. He's more of an interior offensive lineman, a guard mostly, than a tackle, but he can play tackle in a pinch. He played right tackle at Maryland. So I like this depth move. We're pretty thin at center. We have J.C. Hassenauer, former AAF great, Birmingham Iron great, J.C. Hassenauer, as our backup center. So stay healthy, Pouncey, because if not, it's going to be devastating. We're really starting to find our depth here now with the unfortunate injury to Banner. We really can't sustain any more injuries at that and not be really playing below the line. With the Castro being out, Wisniewski being out, we are, as I mentioned, Kevin Dotson will be getting his first start in his NFL career at right guard. Make sure you're paying attention to that, because we'll probably be talking about him in our matchups to watch. But this guy, do not be surprised if he dominates, especially in the run game. He might have to adjust a little bit in the pass protection, but he was a 4-year starter at Louisiana. Big-time effort, one of the reasons why they were one of the best rushing teams in the NCAA last year. Kevin Dotson, I don't think this program is going to be too big for you. Also, if you want to get to know Kevin Dotson a little bit better, I wrote an article for 24/7 Sports, which you'll find the link to 24/7 Sports down in the description here. And it was Meet Big Ben's New Bodyguard. Go check it out. I do a deep dive into who Kevin Dotson is. Great piece that you need to be informed upon. So, especially with him facing his first start this week. He also was featured in our prospect encyclopedia as one of the best prospects on the Steelers list. So make sure you go purchase your copy of that, or even Team PDF, which will probably be given out today. Unless we don't get enough interaction, we'll pass it on to next week. So no biggie there. Other players of the Steelers that were limited this week. Deontay Johnson with a foot. It's just something they're managing. A lot of this stuff is just management style. They're not, giving them full practice reps this year with the COVID, or excuse me, the situation with the health standards around. So Deontay Johnson with a foot, Juju with his knee, they're just managing it. James Conner with his ankle, that's something to be aware of. Alejandro Villanueva had an illness, maybe the cold or the flu-like symptoms going around. Stephon Tuitt, as we mentioned before, had an Achilles. And Big Ben and Marquise, definitely maintenance days as they're veterans, not using their reps in practice as they want them in game day situations. The Denver Broncos now, be mindful. You've already lost Von Miller for the year, supposedly the year, but most likely the year, so we don't have to see him. Mark Barron, the former Pittsburgh Steeler, everybody was saying about is going to be giving away some of our secrets, is out with a hamstring injury this week. AJ Bouye, who was listed initially on the injury report, he's out, but he's also been transferred to IR for Denver. Philip Lindsay, the number 1B option to Melvin Gordon, is out with a turf toe injury, so he is out. Garrett Bowles with an elbow injury, he was limited most of the week, is questionable. Tyree Cleveland with a hip injury is also questionable, and also the AC joint injury to Cortland Sutton has him at questionable. So I wouldn't be surprised Sutton suits up. If he does, I'm not sure he's going to be on a full repertoire of reps. It's probably going to be a limited capacity, so they might hold him out for the long term. And the same way with Tyree Cleveland, not so sure we're going to see either one of them. Garrett Bowles, I think you'll see at left tackle. But that elbow injury might be something to watch, as they had Juwan James, the right tackle, opt out this year. They have Elijah Wilkinson at right tackle. So this might be another good matchup for our pass rushers here. So that's what we're going to jump into now. That was the injury report. This time it's going for three. Three stories we're looking at for the Steelers in this matchup. Who will be our starter at running back this week? As I just mentioned, James Conner didn't really have a designation on our injury report. He's full. He's ready to go. Are they going to show him as the featured back again? Mike Tomlin has been adamant about it. That's his workhorse. But you can't lie with production. You can't lie with the eye test. Benny Snell is the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers backfield. And I want you, Mike Tomlin, to feed the beast. It's nothing, and it's no insult to James Conner. But he is your high-quality backup to Benny Snell's number one. So Benny Snell should be the number one back. If not, I'm gonna be bugged by it. I'm probably not gonna lie. I'm probably gonna be perturbed, and I'm probably gonna say something next edition. So, number two story: will Denver's offensive tackles be able to contain the combination of Bud Dupree, T.J. Watt, and maybe even our second tier of Ola Adeniyi and Alex Highsmith as they rotate in? Garrett Bowles has always been somebody that's had issues with holding. He's always had issues with offside penalties. Now with an elbow injury, is he going to have to try to overcompensate with his pass sets and quick sets? And is he going to get beat up? Elijah Wilkinson, he's not a household name. He's a good young player that's ascending. They have DeMar Dotson on their bench, who's a longtime veteran at right tackle from the Buccaneers. But they're going with the young kid in Wilkinson at right tackle with Juwan James opting out. So it's going to be interesting. It's almost a similar situation as last week with the Giants. Cam Fleming was at right tackle. We had left tackle and Andrew Thomas. They're about equal in talent-wise here. So we might see our edge rushers dominate this week. And if so, Drew Lock he's gonna throw a couple picks for us, especially with our opportunistic defense. So that was number two. Number three, will Big Ben pick apart a young and injury-depleted defense, Denver secondary? So, not only is it Michael Ujamudia is one of their cornerbacks, not only is it a lot of young players outside their safety tandem, who Kareem Jackson missed some time this week to a personal issue. Justin Simmons, one of the best safeties in the game. I'll give him his due. But the outside corners and the nickel corners, Devontae Busby, a lot of these other guys, I'm not so sure they're up to the task to be playing Deontay Johnson man-to-man. They lost Chris Harris Jr. to the Chargers off the offseason. So they're going very young at the cornerback position. I think we have a distinct advantage with our wide receiver room right here with Claypool, Johnson, Washington, and Juju, and our tight ends featuring in the center of the field down the seams. Look for that to be exploited with Big Ben now that he's got the rust knocked off. So that's our three stories to look at here. The three matchups to watch, folks. I'm going to run through these quick. The guy I was already plugging as our featured back, Benny Snell, in this matchup, needs to be running the ball downhill because they cut Todd Davis, their linebacker. Now they're going with an Alexander Johnson, who played well last year, not giving him no knocks, but they have Josie Joel, who's also at linebacker. Mark Barron is out. They are hurting with their depth and quality of talent in the inside linebacker position. If you have Benny Snell, who we know is healthy and loves the downhill running, then you can flash in your James Conner if you want. Bring Anthony McFarland up to the active roster. That one-cut speed and power combination uphill, that's going to be devastating to an interior running presence. Plus, not only that, Kevin Dotson and Chukwueze Okorafor are going to thank you for establishing presence going downhill so they can get their feet wet before they have to adjust in pass protection. Dotson's a better run blocker at this point. Not saying he's a poor pass protector, but if you get him initially started just going downhill and his confidence in moving guys off the line of scrimmage, you're going to see him do better in the long run as a pass protector. So Benny Snell, we need to be pounding the rock downhill to Alexander Johnson. That's the first matchup. Benny Snell, Alexander Johnson. The next one, we talked about the edge rushers. T.J. Watt in specific against Mr. Elijah Wilkinson. T.J. Watt's one of the most renowned and well-versed pass rushers in this league because of the litany of pass rush moves he can throw at you and his tenacity throughout the duration of the play. So T.J. Watt, I think, is going to have a field day against Mr. Wilkinson. Finally, Kevin Dotson versus Jarrell Casey. Not so much in run blocking because I think he'll be able to handle him, but in pass protection. That's a matchup to watch to Big Ben if he's going to be getting blitzed from his from the right guard position. Jarrell Casey's a very underrated pass rusher. That might be a key matchup to watch, especially with communications with both him and Okorafor on the right side. It's going to be a whole new right side this week. Jarrell Casey versus Kevin Dotson. So that leads us now, Steeler Nation, to the three things the Steelers must do to get a W. First, rattle Drew Lock. I talk about the distinct advantage from our edge rushers to their tackles. Cam Hayward should wreak havoc. Stephon Tuitt should wreak havoc. Let's see Vince Williams throwing some heat down the middle of that offensive line. Blitzing Mike Hilton off the edge as well. I think we can really rattle Drew Lock, and I don't think he's going to be able to protect the ball. I think he's going to have 2+ interceptions this game, maybe a forced fumble. I think that's the way we have to win this game is really rattle him. Number 2, exploit those wide receiver mismatches I've already talked about. Cornerbacks that are young and inexperienced and a veteran Hall of Fame quarterback should definitely be able to pick apart an outside coverage scheme is what we're going to be seeing here. Third, we need to finish our drives in the red zone. Nothing against you, Wizard of Boz. You kind of scared me a little bit on the point after touchdown. But if we're talking about Chris Boswell having 3 or 4 field goals in this game, it's going to be a lot closer than what I would like it to be. We shouldn't play down to our competition. This should be a game we should dominate, especially due to the injuries that the Denver Broncos are facing and the inexperience that they have. So that leaves us to the end of our show, folks, and Steeler Nation. I appreciate you listening and help me get through all these technical difficulties. I know I had some lag here with OBS even. I'm glad you stuck it out with me. First of all, I think we're going to wait till next week to pick a winner for the PDF. We didn't be able to get it around quite well right now. But make sure that you stay tuned to our Twitter at Steel City Sermon. We're just basically going to have you guys subscribe to the Blitzalytics YouTube page and then just respond back to me with your Twitter name so that I have you in here for the drawing. We'll drop the rest of it so it's a lot simpler. Just subscribe to our YouTube channel as you find me live here. That way I know you're listening. But if you have yet to, please go to blitzalytics.com/shop and go buy either the PDF, the full PDF version of our prospect encyclopedia. Go buy the hard copy if you want it. Or you can go buy just the specific teams. If you just want to know who the young guys are for the team that your team's matching up with that week, go buy it for $5. We have you covered. So make sure that you go hit blitzalytics/shop and purchase one of our prospect encyclopedias. You will not be disappointed. Also, make sure that you do not forget to go buy one of our Steel City Sermon t-shirts or one of the other Blitzalytics collections or my man Rob's collection at buyjack.com/collections/Blitzalytics. He does all kinds of great work. We'll probably put that link either in this website, in this description of this one, or next week make sure you go buy his shirts. They're high quality. Actually, the one I'm wearing right now isn't a Steel City Sermon one, but it's of our boys, which will be returning quite soon, the Pick 6 podcast. If you want to go get yourself one of them, you can see I'm wearing a TJ Watt jersey in that one. It is always awesome. I already mentioned our Twitter. It's at Steel City Sermon if you want the shows. If you want to reach out to me personally, it's at Preacher Boy Roy. And as always, as I like to close out, stay humble, folks, and Steeler Nation, and be a blessing.
Pittsburgh Steelers.
Pittsburgh do this all the time. I've been playing them for 13 years. When you avoid the middle, they go into the middle. It's never changed.
For my life from the long arm of the Lord.